Welcome back to Case Closed and Review, episode number 32. This will be the fourth Case Closed film, Captured in Her Eyes, released in the year 2000. This film was noteworthy for being the first film appearance of Detective Saito. Yes, and for some reason, the Funimation makes errors with it when it comes to the character itself. One thing, they call her Simone in the dub for some reason. I'm like, what's wrong with saying Saito? Yeah, that's a thing with Funimation. For some reason, for this particular series, they change name characters in the dub. The only character who actually manages to keep his name, both in the sub and dub, is Conan. He's the only one who does. I would say the only one kind of comes close is probably Rachel. Well, same initials per se, except that her name is not in the sub. It's Rand Mori. In the dub, is Rachel Moore. Yeah, if I get a chance to meet Colin Clicky Beard, I'm gonna ask her about that. Like, why her name has changed from the sub to dub for like all the characters except for Conan. Probably because those two names are pretty simple to pronounce. Yep. This film is basically about a series of murders, and well, the film starts off with basically Conan. Well, actually, no. It starts off with a flashback of Jimmy and Rachel at Tropical Land. One of the times they went there. Actually, it's probably the one time they went there, even though they got involved in murder. The one time they did go there, and well, this is one of the times they basically go this fountain thing. They go back to it later on. Yeah, there's many references to the flashback, basically. Yeah, and it's the only time we see Jimmy Cooter the whole movie. Well, basically Jimmy Cooter show up anyways. We cut to present day where Jimmy's talking to Rachel, and they talk about that. And after Conan finishes, then he walks with the Junior Detective League, and then they're about to cross the street, and they're told by a police detective not to cross yet because the light's flashing. I've never seen this at all when it comes to basically crosswalks, where apparently if thing is flashing, don't cross it. I'm like, light's green, you can cross. Yeah, but I don't know how it works over Japan, but last time I checked, when the thing says you can walk, walk does not mean that you can't walk. So he basically goes on phone, and then he's shot by a mysterious assassin. They do not reveal who the heck this guy is until like toward the end of the movie. And apparently and of course he dies. Well, Conan he's basically grasping his shirt like this, basically near his heart area. Yeah, I think he's going for his notebook. They realize that he's going to be his heart later on in the film. And well, it's also revealed that he's actually one of several cops who have been murdered. Well, one of two. Then we cut to basically them talking about it at Moore's office. Then they go invited to Detective Santos' sister's wedding. Well, wedding celebration. I don't know why they call it reception for. They actually no, they should call it reception. Basically, yeah, reception technically that's what it is, a celebration. So, a few people, and this is the scene where in the film we get used to Detective Saito for the first time in the movie, and she basically is asked to talk about her outfit. It's cool. Like he likes it. It's actually a pretty good looking outfit for her. And of course, and because this video she's all investigation later on in the movie involving a particular person's suicide, and then she decides to, of course, McGuire wants to have an armed guard for her. She says, no, I'm going to be perfectly fine. Goes to the bathroom, runs to Rachel. They talk for a bit, and then all of a sudden the power goes out on the floor. Rachel takes a flashlight. The assassin comes in and shoots her right in front of Rachel, and Rachel goes into shock. Saito goes into coma. Though for some reason the Funimation dub referred to her as dead the whole movie, which I'm like, why though would you imply you killed her off for, even though she's perfectly alive and still going in the series itself? Lucky that the film was not essentially canon to the series. Yep. Let's see. And then when Rachel, except for her being unconscious, she apparently has got amnesia. So most of the movie they're trying to basically wake her up, get her memory back, while trying to investigate basically this whole case. And apparently there's also this other inspector guy who was part of this trio of detectives who investigate some kind of drug deal and also the superintendent's son. Yeah, so, and apparently it's revealed the son that basically is estranged from his father because of the whole drug thing. It has nothing really much to do with him being part of rock band or smoking. It's mainly due to drugs. That's one thing he doesn't like about it. He has no problem with him being on rock band, or his attitude, or mostly anything else. He doesn't really like it very much, but the whole thing with the drugs, that's why he's estranged from him. And apparently, for some strange reason, I'm not sure why this is, apparently they're not allowed to investigate this kid because he's superintendent's son. I'm like, you probably could investigate. I'm sure that the superintendent will allow you to, especially since he discovered freaking drugs on him somehow. Yeah, and apparently no one wanted to investigate this at all. It's like people, as police are so stupid they can't investigate something so simple. It's almost like investigating the son of a politician. Can't do it because it'll be political suicide. Yeah, and of course, be a doctor. The doctor reveals something later. Who was a psychiatrist, used to be a surgeon, and and Connor figures out something about him. I'll explain that in a minute. So they basically explain stuff, and the way they figure out the whole thing of Rachel not knowing, losing memory, is apparently she doesn't recognize her own best friend that she's known since she was a child, since they were children, and apparently she doesn't remember anybody. Like doesn't recognize a name, places. Like the start of when her memory comes back is when she recognizes the name Tropical Land, a place where she last saw Jimmy. Mm-hmm. Yep. And, well, later on in the movie, she does get memory back, eventually. When they're at the fountain place, they went to the flashback, while they chased by the assassin, revealed to be the psychiatrist. Why? Because apparently the guy who actually committed suicide, here's the thing about him. The guy was one terrible doctor. Apparently, according to nurses, according to what Cohen investigated, he overheard that apparently this doctor botched operations frequently. The guy was a terrible surgeon, and he allowed multiple patients to die, and he got sued and apparently didn't go anyplace. I'm like, okay, if you have that many patients die on your watch, wouldn't the medical board investigate him for basically malpractice? That's never brought up in here at all. For some strange reason, they would never investigate it, despite the fact that, according to like a lot of doctors and nurses, the guy was a terrible surgeon. I mean, I think it was suggested that he possibly allowed to die about 10 people. I would think that the Japanese medical board is like, yeah, this qualifies the investigation, possibly to take away his medical license, and possibly also send him to prison for what the cool crap he went through. So eventually the guy committed suicide by slitting his wrist, so it's implied that he may have been murdered. Yeah. And apparently the psychiatrist has revealed that the doctor was responsible for him becoming a psychiatrist because it ruined his career as a surgeon. Yep. Oh yeah, and this guy is precise because apparently Rachel saw him, and apparently he was able to avoid having GSR on him by using surgical gloves and an umbrella. Yes, an umbrella. They poked a hole in a big hole. They just sticks his gun through and shoots it off. I'm kind of like, wouldn't, his fingerprints be on the gun anyways? Did they bother investigate that? Nope, it's never brought up. Also, Santos, despite the fact being in the movie, he does nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's also the first appearance to see Chiba. Yes, though for some reason they're actually allowing him to keep his name from the sub. Yeah, I mentioned the only other character who managed to keep his name from the sub, which is kind of interesting because normally they don't allow any of the characters, with the exception of Conan, to keep their sub name. Now they call him the sub. My guess is the reason why they wouldn't change his name to this is first appearance, probably because his name is pretty simple to pronounce. Yeah, that's my personal guess of why that happened. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the interesting thing about him. They don't really change his name in the dub, which I'm like, that's interesting. I mean, they don't really. Though they refer to him as Detective, but yeah, it's still the same name, which is interesting. He's voiced by Chris Caston. It was okay. It's the first time I heard his voice that I could think of, anyways. Yeah, okay. He apparently was in DBZ Kai as Mr. Popo, and he was in Yu Yu Hakusho. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Eventually, Rachel gets married back, beat to the villain, first by, well, breaking his knife with her foot. Yes, because she's got lots of raw strength, and she proceeds to beat the living crap out of him for shooting a woman she cares about right in front of her. A woman who happens to be a very close friend of hers, shooting her what looks like about 5 times. Oh yeah, and they mentioned, oh yeah, the whole thing of the fact they distracted a bullet. There should be about 5 bullets in Saito. Yeah, she can probably easily survive that phase thanks to surgery, but they only mentioned one. They should say bullets, not bullet. Maybe it's just maybe a typo for their script. Yep. So beats the guy, gets arrested, and so yeah, that particular case is solved, but still gotta investigate the whole thing with the drug thing involving the superintendent's son. Superintendent asks basically Conan's name. He politely refuses because he's a minor, doesn't really need to tell his name. Also, there's the whole thing with the drug thing, the whole thing with the character Tobias, who's the son of the superintendent. Yeah, there's investigator Porter, who is the brother of one of the victims of the doctor, and apparently this guy is possibly involved with the brother's death. And Conan basically is with her for a good small chunk of the movie. I'd say about a good 20 minutes, where they investigate stuff together, and they're a good pair. And here's the weird thing: I would have liked to keep this character around for another movie, but nope, I never did. Oh. Despite the fact that this is a really good film, it has some minor problems with it. Like, this is also the first film. This is also the second film in the series to feature Rachel's mom. She does feature in the plot a little bit more than she does in the last film, where in the last film she's barely in it. This film she's in a good chunk of it, which basically is perfectly understandable. Her daughter is basically suffering through amnesia through shock. Mm-hmm. Yep. Also in the movie, a guy gets shot for the first time, and at least unlike in the last few films, he does disappear halfway through, or at least he gets left out of the action. Which I got at least praise the fact they actually proved that. That was probably some people who probably have seen the films probably thought was a problem because if they had seen the first 3 films, like in the first film, Agasa disappears halfway through the movie, left in a hospital room and never seen again. Another film, I don't think he even shows up at all. I think he just gets wounded and he just ends up in the hospital, and that's basically it. Last film, he doesn't do much of anything. I would say the first 4 films so far, Gossett gets a lot more to do in this film. Mostly serves as basically kind of like taxi driver for the Detective Boys, and Anita gets she gets virtually like nothing to do. I mean, she's one character in the movie aside from Santos, who gets virtually nothing. She pops up for a few scenes, gets good character bits, and that's it. She contributes virtually nothing to the plot at all. Amy, George, and Mitch contribute more to the plot than they do, than she does. And it's her second film she's featured in. Yeah, it's only her second film appearance, and she does nothing. She doesn't contribute like any help. She just basically stays in the sidelines the whole movie. She's there, does frickin' nothing. Mm-hmm. Serena actually, surprisingly, was involved with this film. Unlike in the last 2 films where she contributed almost nothing to the plot, this film she did, and she actually has seen a lot, screen a lot. She has a lot more screen time in this movie than she did in the last 3 films, which I do appreciate them fixing that problem. So yeah, so overall, this is a good movie, except that it kind of felt as though with this particular movie, it could have easily also been like at least about an hour long filler episode of the series. That's what it kind of feels like. It doesn't feel like anything epic in scale like the last few films. Yeah, this film, well, for one thing, does feature the Kato Kid, obviously, like the last film. This film feels very small in scale. That's what it feels like to me. It does have good stakes with it because Rachel Moore is basically targeted by a serial killer. But aside from that, it's still a good movie, but feels very small in scale. Okay? So yeah, that's it for this particular review. I have no other videos planned for today. I have roughly 3 videos planned for tomorrow. A review of the 5th film for the series, the newest episode of Case Closed, and the first Daniel Craig movie for James Bond. That's it. Basically, 3 films reviews overall, possibly 4 if I can get done the 6th film as well, okay? But these next few. Bye.